Hello, in this session we're going to be talking about healthy cooking methods. We've really focused on what you eat, but of equal importance is how you prepare and cook your food. I'm often asked why it is that baked potatoes have a higher glycemic load than new potatoes. And the reason is that the longer you cook something, or the higher the temperature at which you cook it, the more easily it breaks down in your body and the faster the carbs are released in your system. I would encourage you to eat as many raw vegetables as you possibly can. Some salad every day is really good to get into your diet. The reason is that raw vegetables come complete with the enzymes which help your body to break them down and digest them. So it gives our systems a much easier time. I would also avoid having deep fried foods. When you're deep frying things, the high temperature means that the carbohydrates are broken down much more quickly in the body, but also deep fried foods can tend to contain hydrogenated fats which are harmful to the body. So let's have a look at some of the best cooking methods. First of all, one of my favourites is steaming. It's really good for fish. And it's great for vegetables because it really helps to preserve the vitamin and mineral content of the vegetable. If you don't already have a steamer, I would suggest that you invest in one, and you can keep the water that you're using to steam the vegetables to make gravy, and it adds some more flavour to the gravy, and of course it means that any nutrients that have leached down into the water don't get tipped away down the sink. If you are boiling, then use as little water as you possibly can and keep the lid on the pan. Effectively then you are going to be steaming the food that's there. Cook it whole and then cut it up afterwards, and make sure that the vegetables are just slightly al dente, so firm bite, and in that way you will conserve as many of the nutrients as possible. Poaching is really good for fish. You can cover it in water, milk or a flavoured broth and then simmer it on a low heat very gently in the liquid. And that's a really good way to infuse flavour into a food. Now, steam frying is a really great alternative to stir frying. You'll need a frying pan with a lid, and you always start off with a tablespoon of olive oil or butter or coconut oil, and saute your onions, your garlic, and then after a couple of minutes add 2 tablespoons of liquid, so that's water or stock. Pop the rest of your ingredients in and then put the lid on, and then you just steam until all of your ingredients are cooked. And I do take the lid off from time to time and toss the vegetables around to make sure that they're really thoroughly cooked. Baking is okay, but the higher the temperature of the oven and the longer you cook the food, the more easily it breaks down in your body, so the higher the GL. So do bear that in mind. Avoid coating food with oil. If you like to have some roast potatoes occasionally, and you know who doesn't, I would suggest parboiling them first and ideally steam them, or do them in a pressure cooker for a few minutes so that they're partially cooked, and then just put a very small amount of coconut oil over them to roast them, and you will find that they are delicious, but do remember to limit the quantity. Grilling food that contains fat is much less damaging than frying it. Key thing to remember here is that you don't want the food to be burnt, because that then is going to create oxidization of the fats in the food, which is harmful to us. It's important to keep frying of food to an absolute minimum, shallow fry rather than deep fry, and use just very small amounts of coconut oil or olive oil or butter rather than using vegetable oils. And really importantly, never heat oils to smoking point, because this oxidizes the oil, making it carcinogenic in your system. Microwaving. It destroys more nutrients than steaming, baking, grilling, frying, deep frying, any other cooking methods. And to be honest, I would avoid microwaving completely. A big problem is that the food goes in the microwave and comes out looking pretty much the same, except it's hot. But the molecular structure of the food has been completely changed, and it actually provides a real challenge to your body to try and do something with this food rather than nurturing and nourishing your body. And a key thing is never ever microwave oily fish, because it just completely destroys the essential fats in there. And if you bear in mind the advice to stand over 6 feet away, then that is giving you a hint of what microwaves actually do to your body and to the food that's in them. Do try and reduce your use of plastics, and particularly don't heat food in plastic containers. Soft plastics leach what are called Zen estrogens into food, and they affect your hormone balance. It's much better for you to use glass or ceramic cooking containers. And rather than using foil, which can leach aluminium into your food, try using baking parchment, say for steaming fish or as a parcel in the oven. One thing that I do is to use a Pyrex dish when I'm cooking fish in the oven, and then I have a lid which fits neatly over the dish. I put just a tiny amount of water in the bottom of the pan, and the fish is steamed within the pan, and the lid helps to keep the steam in, and it does make the fish very succulent and tender. If you're going to use cling film, go for the non-PVC types, and again for the same reason that regular cling film leaches the Zen estrogens. And don't wrap fats in plastic. Put them in a bowl or something similar instead, and in that way the fats will be protected.